Hello again. Edwina Murphy-Droomer is my name, and I am here to welcome you to this series that is all about inspiring and empowering a league of extraordinary mothers, where together we are on a quest to add a little extra to the ordinary by unlocking your passion, compassion, humour and style. Today I have with me Rebecca Gibson, who was born in Sydney, Australia to left-brain baby boomers who did not like to acknowledge her gifts as a psychic medium. A number of traumas led Rebecca to become a mental health professional working in some of Australia's most violent prisons with serial killers, murderers and sex offenders in an effort to help heal people who society have locked away to contain their dangerous behaviours. Rebecca now focuses on healing those wanting to step into their greatness through living a life serving love and their soul's purpose. Rebecca's lived experience working in maximum security prisons and mental health facilities, married with her health struggles and past traumas, have given her an amazing insight and wisdom that she shares through workshops, books, keynotes, speaking, and her divine spiritual work with her clients. Welcome, Rebecca, and thank you so much for being with us. I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks, Edwina. Thanks for having me.
So I know a bit about you because we met when we were both profiled on Profile magazine in January, and so that's when you came onto my radar. But for the people in the audience that haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, I'd love you to give us a bit of a background and let us know how you came to be doing the work that you're now doing.
Becoming a mother turned me into a businesswoman. So my background in the early 90s, I started in nursing and then moved into specialise in psychiatry, and I'm still technically doing that. But now I have a business that I've been growing over 4 years as a psychic medium, doing life and business coaching from a psychic medium perspective. Okay. And I find that I'm very different from other psychics, obviously because of the background that I have, but I've done this because I became a mother.
Yeah. It sounds like an incredibly different version, but I'm totally in imagination here. But having worked, I think you worked in the prison systems and with, seriously hardcore criminals.
Yeah.
And now moving into a space where a lot of us are still imagining psychics, sort of working in little caravans at markets, which I know is a completely different thing to what you do. But the transition from one extreme to the other sounds like a huge journey. So can you just give us a little bit more background about what you were actually doing prior to the work that you do now and why you made the transition?
So, well, my whole life has been guided by my spirit guides and the other side. And I had started off wanting to do my law degree and had moved in to start doing law. And then a serious accident happened to my husband then at the time, and he was very seriously burned and was in the burns unit for 3 months. And then he needed nursing for another 3 months after that because he couldn't use his hands or anything. And my guides had come to me and said, this has happened because you need to go into nursing. From there, you're going to specialize in mental health and you will start working in correctional centers. And I laughed it off. I was like, why would I go from doing a law degree to becoming a nurse? Like, why am I having to do this? And I learned through my life that if I'm not following the path that I'm given from the other side, then things get very difficult for me. So I just kind of did what I was told. And within the first 9 months outside of uni after completing my degree, I started working at the morgue, and that only lasted for 6 months because I got caught multiple times talking to the bodies. And my colleagues are just like, this chick is crazy. And so I had to leave because it was just getting a bit too much. So at the time I'd been trying to shut my abilities down because I really wanted a normal life and I didn't want to be like that. And I'd grown up in Catholic system with very conservative parents who kept telling me. I've since later found out, just a little while ago, my mum said they knew that I was psychic because I was saying things that I could possibly have never have known. And they didn't want me to have a hard life with people thinking that I was mentally ill. So they kept telling me, be quiet, don't say anything, there's something wrong with you. And so I used to think that there was something really wrong with me. And so I moved into psychiatry trying to really hide that part of myself. And I'd started working in forensic psychiatry in a hospital system, but a lockup facility. And the cleaner, who was also psychic, recognized my abilities, and he had this secret get together of all these psychics that would get together every week, and we would like practice and increase our abilities with each other. And I really loved that. But then 8 months out of uni, this job became available in corrections, and it was for the first mental health nurse outside of Long Bay. So in New South Wales, you have Long Bay, which had a forensic hospital inside the prison, and the ambulatory centres, so all the jails around New South Wales, didn't have any mental health. And so it was the very first position of its kind. And it was for somebody who'd been working for at least 10 years and who had all of this postgraduate experience. And I was only 8 months out of university. I really did not want to go. And my guides would wake me up. You have to go, and push, push, push. So I eventually, very begrudgingly, went to this interview. I was 23. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this job. There's 5 males on the panel, prison officers like the governor and the deputy governor, and then a CNC from Long Bay, and then this male nurse manager. And I was like, I cannot believe you're making me do this to my guys. Anyway, got the job. And 10 years, I rose up the rank. I did psych assessments. I had a lot of serial killers, murderers, pedophiles, sex offenders. I did a lot of court reports for probation and parole, a lot of assessments based on, it was a lot of responsibility. It was a lot of work for one person. It was a lot. I had a very traumatic time working in there. There was a lot of things that happened that I now realize that I've got some PTSD about. But then life moved me into adult emergency psychiatry. So I've been doing that since 2010. And now I've had this business for 4 years and trying to juggle both of them. I'm trying to, you like the old stick shift cars, stick shift, like you're balancing the clutch and the accelerator. I'm just trying to find that balance between the two.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the goal is that I will start blending spiritual and mental health together in a way that's easy for both sides to understand that they're quite complementary of each other, rather than this fight that goes on between the two of them. Because a lot of what I experience in psychiatry are diagnoses that point towards psychosis. So me having my clairvoyant and clairaudience open would be considered visual and auditory hallucinations. Me seeing signs from the universe, like people talk about seeing numbers, and a lot of people have worked on what those numbers mean. Me using oracle cards, me talking about chakras, me talking about seeing feathers and having signs from the universe is called magical thinking. And that's part of the DSM-5 criteria for psychosis. Or yes, me being able to see and hear my guides during periods of trauma is called dissociation, where you feel like you're outside of your body. So there's still this little war going on between spiritual and mental health, where if we can blend the two, so many of us would get through life so much more happier and content, because we're not ignoring an aspect of ourselves. A lot of people don't understand how important spiritual health is. We're souls. Mind, body, soul. You physical health, your mental, emotional health, and your spiritual health. Spiritual health practices make a humongous difference to your life and your mental health.
There's two bits there that I want to dive into. One is I'm trying to imagine. I know that when I had my first child, and certainly the others as well, I stopped being able to watch such violent movies and things. I became much more sensitive and triggered by any sort of violence or ugliness in society. So I can't even imagine becoming a mum and working in that environment, how challenging that must be.
It was a struggle at first. I had been writing a fictional book that was very dark and macabre, based on a lot of things that I had learned and experienced whilst working in corrections. And because, that was male maximum security with, quite infamous, violent criminals. And I think writing this fictional book was a cathartic process for me to try and get out a lot of secrets that I had a hold of and a lot of darkness that I needed out. And during the process of writing that book, I found out that I was pregnant. And I'm like, oh, I've write it a little bit. Then when I found out I was having a girl, I could never touch the book again. So it's just sitting there half finished. And everything changed. I got so paranoid about, I know where all these pedophiles live, so I don't want to live in that area, or I know where they shop, so I'm not going to shop there. Or I would see them while I was out with her at the local shopping centre, ones that I know for sure because I've seen them in corrections. And I would find myself growling and you just overprotective warrior. So, and she was never going to have a sleepover, but she had her first sleepover the other week. So we're backing off a bit. I'm trying not to be, I don't want her bubble burst by the reality that I've had to experience. But I'm still trying to keep her safe,
Yeah. Well, it's a tricky balance. I can remember, allowing first sleepovers with my eldest son. It took me a long time to.
People get really upset. Why wouldn't you let her have a sleepover? Because statistically, from where I was sitting, a majority of pedophiles had started their behaviors when they were younger, between 10 and 15, when their hormones are starting to kick in. That's their sexual preference. And a lot of younger children at sleepovers would be assaulted by older siblings or family members of the sleepovers. And so I'm like, I just don't want to put her in that position. So when she had her first sleepover the other day, my husband and I sat there for a good hour and a half, really talking about, we love the family that she's gone to have a sleepover with, but we really, but thankfully the mother, she and I are very good friends. She knew already that I'd been like this. So she gave a big list of things that wouldn't happen while my daughter was there. So I was okay. But I think people need to have very open and honest conversations around this sort of stuff when they have sleepovers and that. And if that's your rule, that's your rule.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's the, that compassion piece. If people have got a story that they bring with them that makes them anxious about something, it doesn't make it right or wrong, but having compassion that we're all trying to do our best on this journey called motherhood that doesn't have a rule book as much as we wish it did.
No, it's so wonderful all at the same time.
I know. Yeah.
So blessed.
Is. Yeah.
So blessed to be doing this work now because I became a mother.
Yeah.
I didn't want to continue doing the job that I was doing. It's dangerous, and after 20-something years, getting a little soul destroying.
Yeah. My experience of spirituality was, Church of England at school twice a week, chapel, and really finding no connection there at all. And in my mind,
so patriarchal.
I know. And in my mind, that was, that spirituality is God. There's one picture, and anything outside that realm is was woo-woo or, whatever. And it was really only being introduced to different energy workers and people in different areas of spirituality in the last couple of years and I'm heading for 48. So it took me a while to get to this place. But I just think it is such a valuable conversation because we all need spirituality in our lives. And I think we all have it, but acknowledging it and how it really affects us. And another, wake up for me was one of my sons. I've got 2 boys and 2 girls. Started being very clear in that he was seeing things in his dreams that then happened later, and this opened up all sorts of conversations. And yeah, it was, you know, it's been a lovely journey. But I would love you to, for the mums that are tuning into this that don't have experience around working with a psychic and really don't know what that would even look like, I would love you to dive more into that.
Okay, so it's twofold. There'll be a lot of mothers now who are noticing that their children are experiencing life different from how they've experienced life, that their perception about things is very different. It's not ego left brain based, it's quite open. There's a lot of bizarre talk about the kinds of humans that are now coming here, like having their human experience. There's a lot of kids being diagnosed on the spectrum. There is a lot of kids that are opening up about previous life experiences in their conversations. They just know things. And our system, the way that it's been built, wants to say that there's something wrong with them, that they have a disability. And yet they're very high functioning, extremely intelligent kids. And so a lot of parents are lost what to do with this child who learns differently, who doesn't pick up on things the way that I pick up on things, who's chosen not to speak just yet. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with them. We're so conditioned by the medical system. There's something wrong with them and it needs to be fixed. And this is the only way that it's going to be fixed. But if there was more understanding about what's happening at an energetic level and more understanding that their brains think differently from us. I mean, they have coding in school now. When we were at school, they didn't do coding. They teach maths differently now from what we were taught, because younger generations' brains are different. So I think that a lot of parents who have kids that have been put on the spectrum, or kids that have been diagnosed with ADHD, or kids that have learning disabilities, need to have a look, as well as what they're doing within the medical system. There are complementary alternate therapies that could be introduced. And I say complementary, do it together, work together, where if they put a lot of effort into understanding the energy behind that child, and that there's not anything wrong with them, they're just different, then things would be much easier for parents. They would take a lot of guilt and shame away from themselves that they've done something wrong, that because they're told there's something wrong with their child, when there's nothing wrong, it's just different. And so for kids that are speaking up about having dreams or seeing things or people talking to them, it doesn't mean that they're psychotic. That's what would happen to me right from 2 or 3, I can remember it. And all through my schooling, I would have so many different things. We are inherently psychic, every single one of us. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, which means we all have access to the quantum field of consciousness. So we're all pulling in different things from outside of this 3D reality of what we see and experience from our 5 senses. We have access to so much more information. And that's why the spiritual arena is growing, because more and more and more people are tapping into it, all leading up to this point. So what I do with my clients is to help them open up to their intuition. I start out by showing them how I do it and showing them the path for their life and business that will be the least resistant, where to navigate, how to navigate obstacles, and how to start manifesting what they want. And then how to then tap into their own access to the quantum field and use their intuition to be making better decisions, to buy back their time. Because once you get to our age, our most precious commodity other than our kids is our time. And I don't want to be wasting my time anymore doing things that are not nourishing for my soul, do not make me a good parent, put me at risk. I don't want to be earning money anymore from a place of scarcity. I want to show up in a much bigger arena now, being my true authentic self. And so that's what I teach my clients. It's time for you to step into a bigger arena. It's time for you to like get in and show up authentically and stop hiding all aspects of yourself, because the world needs us all now to step up and serve love in our own unique way and understand. For in the spiritual arena, you might hear a lot about talking about fifth dimensional consciousness, moving from 3D into 5D, or the new earth is what they call it. And Eckhart Tolle had written a book on a new earth, and Oprah did this big thing on it. And we've all been talking about this fifth dimensional consciousness. What that means is you're moving into oneness, you're understanding we are actually all the same organism. We're all the same energy expressing itself in different forms. So the God energy or the universal source energy, whatever it is that you want to call that initial beginning of energy, has expanded and expressed itself. It expresses itself as you, Edwina. It expresses itself as me, Rebecca, with all this different perceptual stuff. And so when you're moving into fifth dimensional consciousness, you understand that. And what COVID-19 and what's now happening globally across the world is making us realize we're a species. We're not separate from each other. We're a species. Humanity is all being affected. And you'll hear the message over and over again. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. And it's because we actually are all one together. And so it's really slowing the whole world down to stop, take stock of what's really important, and to understand we're a species, and to not allow fear to rip us and the earth apart. Because what's been happening is fear's been ruling, and we've been destroying the earth and each other from that energy. And now it's time to push back, move into love, pivot into love and compassion and acceptance and forgiveness and gratitude, and really starting to look at how we live our lives and how we spend our time from now on.
I think it's the most beautiful opportunity to slow down. And, you know, this is something that I've been talking to my clients a lot about, is that we get to find the playfulness in our lives again and start, you know, like doing things that we've been wishing we had time to do. And I see so many silver linings. I know there's a lot of tragedy and a lot of hardship and a lot of fear and anxiety. I see that, and I'm not trying to in any way diminish that. It is what it is, but there's also so many silver linings. And when I see the clear water in the canals in Venice and blue skies in China, and, you know, animals coming back, you know, where they haven't been forever, it's just there's a settling going on.
I say to my clients, and me myself, I've not wanted to sell, I've not wanted to market, and scarcity kicks in. You've got no new clients at the moment. You need income. Like, you need to sort this out. And my ego's like screaming at me, get some clients. But that's just me adding to the collective of fear. If I'm in a position where I don't have to be fearful at the moment, I am fortunate enough to be in a position where I can stay at home with my child. And I know that the money will come eventually. We know that we're in a good position have to hold space for the ones that aren't. And the people that are sick, and the people that are dying, and the people that, you know, feel like they might get kicked out on the street, not be able to feed their family. They're in a lot of fear, and it's our role now to hold space for them and keep holding this vibrational frequency of love, and to move the ones that are lucky. So I have so many friends who are so fortunate at the moment, who are whinging and complaining and have really like dived into the negativity of it all, and are starting to catastrophize everything from a place of deep fear. my role to point out you've got a lot to be grateful for right now, and you need to pivot yourself back into the
Yeah.
love-based frequencies, because you don't want to make things worse for yourself, but you also don't want to add to the collective when there's
Yeah.
already people who have every right to be feeling fearful
Yeah.
and scared right now because of the circumstances that they find themselves in. So
Yeah.
don't be privileged and catastrophize everything, because
Yeah.
it's not your place to be doing that right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, I feel like there's, I feel like a real baby in this spiritual world and a lot of the languaging. So I'm probably going to keep coming back to things because I want to learn. And if I want to learn, then I'm imagining people listening want to as well. But when you talked before about hearing voices, it actually just triggered a memory for me of my now nearly 17-year-old daughter, who used to talk about that quite a lot. And, she was still is, but was a real dreamer. She was the one that always had her head in the clouds. She was always building fairy houses and in that beautiful bubble of imagination for a long time. And I think of her as my Disney princess. But she used to talk about that, and I used to just think it was part of her imaginings. And
Or they have imaginary friends, or wow, you've got a wild
yeah,
imagination.
yeah,
But um especially when you're so open psychically, so that means you're open to the quantum field of consciousness. There is a lot of scientific evidence coming in now to prove the existence of what psychics and mediums experience, of people who call themselves intuitives, or people that call themselves highly sensitive persons. There's an amazing quantum physicist called Dr. Teresa Bullard. I'm obsessed with her stuff. She has such a beautiful way of articulating the science behind the spiritual experiences. And I find myself trying to reteach what I've learned from her, and it just comes out like waffle, because she just teaches, makes everything so easy to understand. And so I've learned a lot through her, and the electromagnetic field of the heart and the complexity of that, because I like everything to be evidence-based. And so I know that people have wonderful imaginations, but when you're a kid and you're still not stressed by ego, like you don't have to worry about bills or feeding yourself, or you don't have to worry about your time so much, because you feel at that stage it's infinite.
yeah,
You have a greater awareness of what's happening in the quantum field, because your ego's not blocking it off. All the shadows born from fear are not like tuning everything out, and so the white noise isn't as much. You're able to tune in much more clearly.
yeah,
So you do have a lot of deceased relatives come and visit you in your dreams. You do hear a lot. You do have a lot of, especially teenagers. Especially when I started menstruating, it really up leveled and kicked in, and I had a lot of experiences where I wish I had somebody to guide me through them, because I wasn't grounded at the time, and it was very scary what was happening. I would get a lot of headaches and a lot of fleeting thoughts of returning home. And so if I ever said that, oh, I just want to go home, I can't stand being here anymore, I don't want to be a human anymore, sometimes people would misconstrue that to mean I want to kill myself. It's completely different thing. I just didn't like this whole human experience, and I knew without a doubt that this wasn't it. You just don't keep doing this human thing, or you're not worm food when you die, that there was a soul and that you have these other experiences of consciousness. And I would have like precog, even your daughter may be experiencing this. It's like called precognition, where you would see something happen seconds, within a minute before it actually happened. When you experience it, you actually believe that it happened right then, because you're experiencing it in 3D. Your whole five senses are involved in that experience, and so it feels very real. And then all of a sudden it happens again. And I used to get very worried about stuff. If I brought that up, that's my mum especially, like, that's crazy, stop talking about it. But now understanding what happens with energy in the quantum field, it's just kind of like a glitch in the system where you see it before the system registers it, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
It's very interesting. Once I knew everything that was going on with me, and I sought support from other psychics and people who had been experiencing a lot of this stuff, I felt much easier being able to control it, but I had to understand the science that was coming out for me to really ground myself into it. Like I couldn't get into crystals, and then I started looking at the science behind crystals and energy and frequency, and I'm like, oh, I get why they work now, and so I'm able to work with them the way that they're supposed to, because I understand the how. I always have to understand, but how.
Yeah. I've got so many questions bubbling through my head.
Ask away.
A lot of new conversations to have with a couple of my kids. It's really interesting, but it's, you know, I having that intuitive sense of this, but not knowing how to articulate it, or that there's other possibilities. And, you know, from my experience in those early days, I can remember thinking, oh my gosh, I hope she's not schizophrenic. You know, that was, you know, I think as mums, we can bounce to worst case scenarios. And if
because
you don't,
that's how we're conditioned.
if you don't have
the
another
patriarchal system.
Yeah. So, and if there's not, I didn't have another possibility in my head. So, yeah, interesting. Anyway, that might be a light bulb for other mums as well, I'm sure.
I hope so, because a lot of kids now will be talking about this stuff. This is meant, like, the reason why the spiritual arena is growing as rapidly as it is for this period now where we have to start helping guide people into their true essence, rather than this existence that everybody's been living. Everybody's just been existing. They've just been buying and purchasing and mindless and filled with TV and the news and just, you know, kind of like on this hamster wheel of just day after day after day and not living and thinking that they are living, and they're not, because they're not being truly authentic about what lights them up. Or fear kicks in, and it's like, I really want to do this, and then fear kicks in, no, you can't do that, you'll die. And so you stop truly living. And kids now are teaching us, stop telling me there's something wrong with me, accept this authenticity about me. Just because I don't learn the way that you do doesn't mean that I don't learn. I especially find that with dyslexia. And then you look at Richard Branson, and his dyslexia is quite severe. But look what he's done with his life. He found a way to express himself. And now there's all this scientific stuff coming out where people have been code breaking. And so, because there's different forms of dyslexia, people have been code breaking and writing things in code. And those people with that particular dyslexia are experiencing it as English. To us, we look at it and it's code, but they're reading it as English. So why would we think there's something wrong with them just because they think differently from us? This is really teaching us to be inclusive. And our kids are our greatest teachers.
And I've got several, you know, mentors. My coach, Shanda Sumner, she's dyslexic, and I have another mentor, Dean Graziosi, who's a hugely successful in the entrepreneurial world. He's dyslexic, and, you know, I just keep hearing this repeated pattern. It can't be coincidence.
No, because they think different. The people are supposed to think differently. I don't want to be part of the herd.
No.
I'm all for herd immunity, but I don't want to be part of the herd, as in I don't want to be asleep. I don't want to be asleep and just existing.
I was having a conversation with a very dear friend of mine who lives in LA, and we were talking about this, and I said, for heaven's sakes, I don't mind what people call me, but don't ever call me nice, and don't call me normal.
I really embrace weird now. So my 6-year-old, she goes, you're such a weirdo. And I'm like, you're a weirdo too. How cool is it? We're the coolest widows ever. She loves it.
We're our own little gang. Gang of weirdos.
Growing rapidly.
So another piece of language that I was introduced to, I spent several months in the US last year doing leadership, and, you know, really peeling back lots and lots of layers that I'd accumulated over the years to identify myself, and going back to something a bit more raw. And I was talking to one of my coaches about how I find being in large social situations just really difficult. I'm quite extroverted. Give me a stage, give me, you know, like I'm quite happy to be on video, but put me in a situation where I'm in a big room of people, and I find I take on, I just get really, if there's people that are upset, I get really upset, and it's like I can't work out why. And she was talking about introducing me to the idea of being an empath. And so that was a new thing that I only learned about last year.
Wow.
And I know that this is something that you certainly know a lot more about than
Yes.
me.
So empath is a psychic ability. People will experience their psychic phenomenon differently. So be it visual or just knowing things or hearing things, and that's what's called your clair. So it's like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and claircognizance. So sentience is being able to physically feel the presence of things around you before you lay your eyes on them. When people like kind of walk in to a room and you haven't seen them or heard them yet, but you know they're there and you know who it is, or your body kind of reacts. You're sensing them. It's actually our electromagnetic field around our heart communicating with each other first before our physical body gets involved. But empaths, I've heard someone the other day call it clair empathy. But empaths and empathy is very different. When you empathize with someone, you can put yourself in their shoes and understand that you wouldn't want to be experiencing what they're experiencing. Rather than being, the sympathy comes from the ego, like, oh, I'm not even going to put myself in your shoes. Sorry that you feel like that. Sorry that's happening to you. It's disconnected. Yeah. Empathy is more connected, where I like, oh, I could imagine that, and that's horrible, and I would hate to feel like that. And empath is, I absolutely feel what you're feeling. I literally feel what you're feeling now, and I know why you're feeling that way. You don't even have to open your mouth to me first. And so empaths tend to be very introverted. Introverted isn't shy, and this is another thing that people get mistaken with, thinking that introverts are shy and extroverts like really in your face. And it's an energy thing. Introverts charge by themselves. They have to be by themselves to recharge themselves and fill up their energy. Extroverts pull in energy from everybody, and that's how they charge up. So they like to be around other people. They don't like their own company, because that's when they start to feel drained. The more people they're with, the more energy they start to absorb and feel. So extroverts don't have to be in your face either, and introverts don't have to. Can be very introverted, but comfortable with who they're with, then they're laughing. Like, if I'm comfortable with who I'm with, I'm so gregarious and, you know, the life of the party and center stage, but I'm so introverted. People don't believe me. And I'm like, I have to have as much time by myself as possible. I don't like to come out of my house if I don't have to. I won't answer my phone. I think text messaging is the best invention ever. I can't stand talking on the phone because it's draining to me. I just don't want to talk to you. Like, I love you, but don't speak to me. I remember one of my girlfriends is super introverted too, and we're always like texting or whatever, and she rang me once, and I never pick up the phone. She rang me and I'm like, oh my God, someone's dead. I was like, what's wrong, Denise? Are the kids all right? Is everything all right? And she's like, oh no, I just wanted to talk to you. And then she starts laughing, and then her husband's in the background laughing, and she turns around to her husband. I told you she thinks someone was dead because I rang. I'm like, what happened? She's at the hospital. Because I don't answer the phone. And I tell everybody, please don't think it's a reflection of you. I'm honestly not being rude. Just for my boundary is I'm not answering the phone. That's my boundary. And so just accept it how it is. That's one of my boundaries. And I tell everybody that I'm just not going to answer. If I answer that phone to you, then I love you and I'm comfortable with you, and you don't, I don't feel drained by your presence. So that's what empaths do. What's been happening though, as more and more starts to come out about empaths, and then they start to understand, like, if they understand the difference between empathy and empath, it's like people running around calling difficult people narcissists, and like, well, that's not the true definition of narcissism. You just can't get along with them. Doesn't mean that they're narcissistic. They're just difficult for you to communicate with.
Yeah.
So social media kind of whitewashes a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So empaths now, as they're starting to understand who they are, why they get drained, why they can't stand being in large crowds of social situations, because they feel so bombarded with shit tons of emotional frequency, because emotion's frequency. When they start pulling in all of that emotional frequency, their emotions are like all over the place. And if they don't know that they're an empath, they start thinking that their emotions are all over the place, and then they start wanting to rationalize why they feel that way, and then start looking at what's happening currently in their situation. Oh, I must be feeling this stressed and that because of that conversation. And so then they go and attach all of this emotional frequency to a conversation. The two are not related at all. And then they go and create problems for themselves and drama for themselves, because they're not understanding that what they're experiencing isn't actually their stuff to experience. So the stuff that they're being taught from all the books and stuff that are coming out, because I've done a lot of research on this, and I would get fired up going, this is so disempowering.
Yeah.
It's so disempowering. Empaths go into victim very easily, into their victim archetype. So we all have archetypes. People are like, oh, what are you saying, victim? It's an archetype. We all share, like, we all have like 12 to 20 archetypes, but we all share the same four of child, prostitute, saboteur, and victim. And if it's like, I'm not a prostitute, it's like, it's not literal. The prostitute archetype is where you work doing, like me, going into emergency psych and possibly getting my head punched every shift because I thought I was earning good money. That's my prostitute archetype making me do that.
Yeah.
Scarcity and fear making me do things for survival that I don't want to do. So that's that archetype. The empath very much get into victim archetype. Poor me, I'm an empath. I feel drained about everybody. I can't speak to anybody because I'm drained all the time. There are psychic vampires deliberately siphoning my energy out of me to make themselves feel better. I am always attracting narcissists because I am such a giver and I am such a good person, and I make everybody feel better, and everybody comes and dumps their stuff on me, and that's because they're all narcissistic. It's victim, 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 victim talking. And so the stuff that's coming out from some big publishing houses is, you have psychic vampires sucking you dry. No wonder you poor little thing are feeling like that. That is the most disempowering thing that you can say to someone.
Yeah.
Empath's like a superpower, to be able to know, physically feel and experience the whole gamut of like emotional frequency, to be able to tune into someone and see where they're feeling fear and help them then move that fear and alchemize it into love, is a superpower. And it's something that everybody needs to realize. You were given these abilities so naturally without having to work on them. You naturally have these abilities because right now, in this time where humanity is coming together as a whole and fear has just raised its head. I mean, Donald Trump is the president of the United States. If you can't use that as the poster child for fear led to that, then you're existing. Fear has led to these ridiculous things happening across the globe. And now this virus is teaching us that you need to start re-examining your life. Look at Italy singing, people coming together in love. They can't be with each other, but they're wanting to connect in from a place of love. And so empaths now, it's vital for them to stop thinking that they're a victim of circumstance and that their ability makes them a victim and that it's somehow disempowering. And they need to wake up and understand that they're the evolution of emotional consciousness, and they're the ones that are going to help hold space and lead everybody back to love, so we can come back together as humanity and stop destroying this precious planet and everybody and everything on it. So
I'm having so many light bulb moments in here. I don't even know if I can pull it all together. I know I'm going to be digesting this conversation for ages afterwards, but I've always described myself as an extrovert because I love people and I love connecting, and but there is that part of me that really finds it difficult in crowds. And it wasn't until I took my business virtually, so I get to sit in my own house behind a camera, that my business really took off. And so I've just seen that connection there. And literally before we did this, started to record this interview, I was grabbing something to eat with my daughter when my kids are home. And I was like, do you know, I just am feeling more relaxed and happier and happier and happier. And it is this being at home, and, you know, like, it's feeding the introverted part of me that really thrives on having this quiet downtime. And I'm actually filling up. I can feel it.
Yeah, because you're isolating from massive amounts of frequency. Empaths are still very much feeling collective consciousness of fear at the moment. And I can feel it. I'm constantly, I have spiritual hygiene practices. Everybody should have spiritual hygiene practices. So I always tell people, like, before the virus, you would wash your hands. If you went and hugged 500 people during the day, or shook 500 hands during the day and didn't wash your hands, your hand would feel gross. You just would feel gross. It would feel dirty. You would feel unclean, and you would start to feel ick. And I mean, the people hug you, you'd take your clothes off and you'd wash them, and you'd go and have a shower. So I tell my clients constantly, I can't bang on about this enough. Your spiritual hygiene is important, like, so important. We have big electromagnetic heart, like, fields around our heart. Our heart is this constant source of electricity and light, and is connected into the quantum field. Your brain could die. As long as your heart keeps pumping, your whole system will keep regenerating cells and will keep your body alive, because your heart is still connected into source energy and still pumping. If your heart dies, you're dead. So it's measurable. On average, people are about a 3-meter circumference of their electromagnetic field. And so, you know, people in your personal space, you don't like it, it's because they're bumping into your electromagnetic field, and your body's starting to sense that it's being encroached upon. And so because we're constantly picking up energy like that, it's super important for us to clean our energetic body, because we have these big, like, fields. Because I now I know how to work it, I can expand mine out further and further, and I'll be teaching empaths in a course how to expand their energy out and help to give love-based frequencies to everybody around them without feeling drained, without feeling that people are, like, sucking them dry of all their energy. But you have to ground your energy, like walking barefoot on grass, sea salt, water conducts electricity, plain concrete, up against a tree and allowing the frequency of the tree to calm your system down. Like, if you put your spine up against the tree and do some deep breathing, your spine, you know, being your nervous system, will start to calm its frequency down to the tree. Ground yourself. And then cut cords. And by cords, it means, because our energetic body's constantly communicating. You just think of it like you've got all these octopus tentacles out of your electromagnetic field, and, like, feeling people out. Oh, do I want to talk to them, or do I, like, am I going to interact here, or going to interact there? And so you're attaching these cords to people all the time, and people are constantly attaching cords to you. So there are different practices that people use to cut the cords, to, like, and pull their cords back in. Everyone talks about cutting cords, but you've got to retract your own cords, because if you're not pulling your cords back in from everyone that you've attached them to, you're still communicating frequency to each other, and so you're still feeling drained because you haven't pulled your cords back in as well. We just need to, especially empaths, you just got to be responsible and accountable for your own energy. Stop blaming other people for feeling so drained. Look after your own energy, clean it, have good spiritual hygiene practices, and you won't feel like the whole world's, you know, sucking you dry and you've got nothing left for yourself.
I sent an email to my tribe just this week, which is all mums, about worry hour. So you know, 3 o'clock, I've spoken to so many women now that have that 3 o'clock wake up, and That's
in the morning.
it seems to be the 3 a.m. I've dubbed it worry hour. So I was telling my the women in my audience that at that hour, instead of being focused on all the things that are, I can cling on to be worried about, I think about sending tendrils of love out and creating this kind of blanket of love that connects us all at 3 o'clock, all the women that
Do you
are
want me
lying
to tell
awake.
you why it's 3 o'clock?
Yes.
So Chinese medicine will say it's your liver, but your liver's trying to process a lot of fear and anger. So your liver processes that. But in terms of masculine and feminine energy, it's a lot of, when you start tuning in, it'll be around 3:30, 3:33, you'll wake up. And it's the rising of the feminine. So you would have heard a lot of people talking about this is the rising of the feminine, this is the feminine coming up. It's just the divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy on all of us starting to balance. And so if you're needing to be more in your nurturing energy, more in your creative energy, you'll start getting woken up between 3 and 3:30. So that's when you probably would have been dreaming about something to do with emotional stuff or something creative or something that you need to do, and you'll get woken up at that time. The fear stuff, people who are experiencing a lot of fear at the moment are getting woken up around 4, after 4, and not being able to go back to sleep. They're waking up worried. So the ones waking up around 3 are waking up, I need to fix how I'm feeling and move into love-based frequencies and calm my system down. And the ones that are waking up after 4 are feeling very fearful, and it's very much the ego-based stuff that's waking them up. And then they're like, I need to turn on the news. Oh, I need to know the radio. I'm going to need to open my phone. What's happening now?
Yeah.
So if you are finding yourself waking up in that fear-based thing, pivot immediately. I'm not going to check the news and I'm not checking my phone. I'm just going to sit here, get into my heart, and then just love myself, and then spread that love out and be grateful for everything that I have right now in this moment. It's so important for everyone to be present right in the moment. That's
probably a great segue into your gift that you have for everybody.
A meditation.
Yes.
So I channeled a meditation for helping people alchemize fear into love. So alchemy is turning things into gold. It's using the dark and shining the light and turning things into gold. Gold's formed through alchemy. Yes. So the meditation, it's 20 minutes. I've mixed it in with what's called binaural beats. So the hertz frequency that is behind the music is for the heart chakra and for love. And so if you listen to it with your headphones, and make sure that your left ear is in your left ear and your right, because binaural frequencies, certain frequencies in through the left, certain frequencies in through the right, and then they're designed to set off your synapses in certain ways, activate like your pineal gland and stuff in your brain. So it's set to binaural frequencies for love, and it's basically a guided meditation to help you move from fear into love and understand that you are one with everything, that everything is fine just as long as you keep being grateful. Yes. And keep pushing back fear and moving into love. Even if you feel so helpless right now and that there's nothing that you could possibly do to help the world, and you just feel helpless and worthless, you don't have to be. Just being grateful for what you have and just sending good thoughts out. Everyone's like, oh, love and prayers aren't what's needed now. But for those of you, for those people who can't give financially or give things, and so many people can't even hug anybody, and so they're feeling helpless, especially the touchy-feely type people, like, I can't see my friends and I can't hug, or I can't just drop this over. They're feeling very helpless and hopeless at the moment. Just pivoting yourself constantly into gratitude and love helps the collective. The collective consciousness isn't a woo-woo thing. It's a frequency. And go check out Dr. Teresa Bullard's stuff. Start looking at quantum physics. Drown yourself in all the physics and science behind what's happening in terms of our spiritual abilities and what happens with emotional frequency and stuff. You can make a difference. It might feel minute. That little bit of herd immunity against fear is everything. It doesn't feel like much for people to go and get vaccinations. Like pivoting your thoughts into love is exactly the same. I'm just doing my bit by the herd immunity, and we want to be immune against fear.
Beautiful.
So that's what the meditation's for.
Oh, I'm dying to look at it myself. So we are going to have to wrap this up. I think I've even lost track of time, but it's been such a beautiful conversation. I haven't wanted to stop. But I do want to end with, each of the speakers that comes on, I ask them to bring a really treasured style piece, whether that's clothing or jewelry or, even a favourite lipstick. What is giving you a lift? So what did you bring with you?
That's my necklace.
Oh.
I made this myself. It's very heavy.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
I've been collecting all of these. I started with this little troll addiction while I was working in corrections. And I started collecting all of these crystals and pieces. But this crystal here, so this is the only one in the world. It was at a local crystal shop in 1994 when I was a poor, starving university student and had no money. And I swear it was calling my name and singing like an angel. I'm like, oh, I really want it. And it's a Vietnamese designer who makes one piece a year for his wife. And then when she gets a new piece, she wears that for her year on her birthday. And she gives the other piece to one of their retailers. So it had been sitting there for months, and it was $640 in 1994, which I thought was just huge. Yeah. Especially I was working 4 jobs just to feed myself 2-minute noodles and
you could buy your first car for that probably.
$640. I'm like, oh, I don't have it. My husband had killed me and I didn't even have it. Yeah. And I walked outside and I'm like, right. I never even knew about manifestation yet. And I was like, I'm getting that. Whether I like, it's happening. I'm getting it. And I looked over and there's this stingy little pub. I had a Keno sign out the front. So I walked in and I'm like, what am I doing in here? And then it come up, someone just won $640 on Keno. I'm like, oh, I put $1 on Keno. I won $640. I went straight back into the shop and bought it.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
That's crazy.
I've done some weird stuff lately because I've like been working on my money blocks and still got some issues around money stuff. And in January, I had the chicken pox and I was so sick. And I had during the week, my girlfriend and I were taking our kids down to a concert in Sydney, and I started itching and feeling really weird on the way home. I wasn't contagious because of my medical condition. Chicken pox is one of those things that if I get, it's not shingles, it comes out as chicken pox, but if I'm really run down, the virus will activate again. And so I was really sick, but while we were there, I'm like, oh my God, I haven't ordered my daughter's birthday presents for the next week. So I'm like, she really wants a Barbie car. So I got into eBay. I bought this Barbie car for $50, not even realizing they were heaps cheaper in the shop. I was just like, oh my God, that's it. So then we're home, and on this Saturday, the guy emails me from eBay. We don't have it in stock. You have to wait 5 weeks. I'm like, no. I'm like, angels, I need a Barbie car. And then I looked because I needed it for Tuesday. I looked and they said they had some at Maya. So next minute, face is on, even with the chicken pox. I've gone up to Maya. It says they were in stock and there's none on the shelf. And I just, when you're desperate to get something your kid really wants, and it's like, I'm poxy. Oh my God. And I'm standing in the aisle in Maya looking like a total twit face. And I'm like, oh my God, angels, fake. Thank you for this Barbie car, because I'm not driving all around Newcastle looking for this effing Barbie car. Just thank you for delivering it. Thank you for delivering me the Barbie car. So I go and find this lady, and I'm like looking sick as a dog. She's like, are you all right? I said, no, I want a Barbie car. It says it's in stock and there's none on the shelf, and I'm going to cry because if I don't give this Barbie car to my daughter, I don't know what I'm going to do. So she found one out in the back dock, and I was so grateful. Then Tuesday morning, she opened up all the presents, and there's a delivery from a Kmart 4 hours away with the Barbie car just in it. There's no invoice or anything. There's just the sticker from Kmart. And so I've like gone, I've like, am I that high off any histamines? I don't even remember buying this Barbie car. Like, where's this car come from? And so I've gone through all my PayPal accounts. I went through all my credit card statements. I put this thing out on Facebook. Did anyone send a Barbie car to their house? Like, I rang Denise, did you order a Barbie car? And she's like, no, what are you talking about? So I think I've manifested a Barbie car. So I get into my Kmart account. I didn't even order it. So I ring Kmart. I've got this order number, and they go, no such order exists. So I'm like, well, it does. And they're like, it doesn't exist. And so they didn't want the Barbie car back or refund because they said there was no such thing. The order didn't exist.
So did she end up with 2 Barbie cars?
I've kept the other one, and I'm like, it's a sign to me that I can manifest, because I'm like, delivered to the front door. So then I rock up at my girlfriend's new house, and she's like the manifesting queen. And I'm all excited about, well, one, I was excited because I got a refund of my $50, and the one that I bought was only $20. So I'm so excited that I saved $30, and I've got 2 Barbie cars now. So I'm standing in my girlfriend's multi-million-dollar new house that she's manifested, and I'm like looking at the beach, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty good manifesting. Guess what I manifested? A Barbie car. She's like, what? I said, well, you know, I stuck on my money stuff. I've manifested this Barbie car.
You've done it.
And
So
she goes, oh, that's good. And I feel like such a dick because I'm standing in this gorgeous house. And then I'm like, but you know what the lesson I learned is? The lesson I learned is I'm always worrying about how am I going to get the numbers? How am I going to get the money? How? I'm not trusting or surrendering to the universe and just putting my order in. Like if I went to put an order in of my food, I wouldn't walk into the kitchen, how are you cooking this? How is it going to get done? I'd just trust that it was getting done. So I wasn't trusting the universe. So I said, I just didn't worry about the numbers. I didn't have to because it was like $20 car. I'm like, I had the money, so I don't have to worry where the money's coming from. And then she said, oh, I totally just learned a lesson from that about how this house came about. I'm like, if I can teach the manifesting queen just a little hint, I'm keeping that Barbie car.
You had me at Angels, I need a Barbie car.
With my chicken pox face covered in makeup, trying to pretend I wasn't sick, and my eyes were like bloodshot and skinny, and I'm just like, I just want to go home and die. But I had to get that Barbie car.
There was the moment when you could have got locked up.
Yeah. I could have. I imagine there's been many of my patients that have probably been in the same predicament and did get locked up.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm a mother on a mission.
Yeah.
I want that Barbie car. It's happening. Deliver it.
I think there's a movie script in there, Rebecca. I think it's...
But seriously, I'm still like, my ego is still like, how did Kmart just know that I wanted a Barbie car? And it was from Tamworth. It's like 4 hours away.
Oh gosh.
How did that? And I'm still like, how did the Barbie car just turn up at my front door?
Oh my goodness. All right, gorgeous. I can't believe we've got to wind this up. Maybe we'll do an episode 2 at some stage. But thank you so much for being with us. It's just been
Thanks for having
me. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh my goodness. If you're still with me, you've done well. That was a long interview, but I just didn't want to wrap it up. I was learning so much as we went through that. And I hope that there was plenty of light bulb moments for you as well. So I'm not going to rattle on. You know the deal. I'm here to support in any way that I can. Please leave comments, buy into the conversation, and let's, as mums, look at where these different spiritual elements are coming into our lives and open up a different set of possibilities and a different set of conversations that perhaps we haven't explored before. All right, that's it from me for today. See you next time. Much love. Bye for now.